afraid of change that it is possible to believe a false story rather than accept the truth as we see it. I think Micah should have said to the people after he asked, "And what does the Lord require of you, O mortal?" I think he should have said, "The ability to accept change, to understand that it is the first step to transformation, and that without transformation you will not know God." I believe the gospel story today has everything to do with our openness to a new way of thinking, to change, which is a path to transformation. Jesus, the man born blind, and the parents of the man born blind all have question after question tossed at them, yet those asking the questions do not believe the answers. It's as if they're asking the questions, waiting to hear the answer they want to hear. The answer, of course, is the one already in their head, not reality, and not one that will require them to transform their belief. Status quo remains undisturbed. A little background. In the chapter just before this story, Jesus is speaking with a group of people who really want to take him seriously, yet they're unable to follow him for whatever reason. His truth is painful for them. He tells them that they are slaves to sin and that Father Abraham is not the father to whom he is referring. That if they knew his father, they would know him because it was his father who sent him. And further, Abraham knew about this. Jesus makes them so angry with that statement, and then he tells them that they do not know God. They are so angry at him that they pick up stones to start throwing at him. In typical Jesus fashion, he hides and disappears and leaves the temple. This gospel picks up just a little bit later as he is walking along the way, and they see the man blind from birth. His disciples ask him, "Whose sin caused this man to be blind?" When Jesus answers that no one sinned, that it is so that God's work might be revealed in him, this began the onset of all the questions and that really long gospel. Theologian William Countryman writes that the goal of John's gospel as a whole is that we come to believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that this belief will give us life, meaning that we will be transformed in our new understanding and belief. The end result of this transformation is that regardless of what is happening in our lives or around us, even disbelief, the light is there for all those who choose to look. And that light is love with a capital L, and all else has no meaning. God is love, and to love God is to be loved by God, to love even more. That is what the man born into the darkness saw. He literally and figuratively saw the light. That is what the leaders of the synagogue and all those with questions could not see, would not see. The light comes from love. To be like Jesus is to seek the love that leads us into that peace which passes all understanding, so far beyond our comprehension. German theologian and anti-Nazi dissident Dietrich Bonhoeffer writes, "It is only because Jesus became like us that we can become like him." That is the question, I suppose. Can we really become like Jesus? Many excuses are made as to why we cannot, yet I think we can. Regardless of whether we succeed every moment of every day, that's not the point. I have to tell you about this dream I had the other night. I dreamt it, I woke up, I fell back asleep, and I entered back into the same dream. And I did this 2 more times. The first time I dreamed, there was a tree so large that it was beyond my understanding that it was actually a tree. It didn't look like a tree, but I knew it was a tree. And I knew that this tree was God. The only words I heard were face forward. I woke up, thought that's a really weird dream. Fell back asleep, and I returned to the dream, except this time thin slices were being cut from the tree. And then they were being handed to us to feed us, whoever us was. There were more than me, but I was only focused on myself. I woke up again, and I thought, this is even weirder. And I fell back asleep again, and I began to dream of the tree again, except this time the branches are leaning over, and there is water dripping from them so that we could drink. In each dream, there was such calm, and always the words, face forward, facing forward. There was no worry about what would happen, whether I was lacking or what I should be doing, or what I had forgotten. I was content to be in the presence of that largeness and that unknowing. There was nothing else. A friend told me that my dream is a reminder that God cares far more and is far more interested in what we are about to do than what we have done. I'm not sure that's right. I think it was more like the New Zealand night prayer. What has been done has been done. What has not been done has not been done. Let it be. The dream also reminded me of St. Teresa of Avila. We sang her song last Sunday, Nada te turbe. Let nothing disturb you. Let nothing upset you. Everything changes. God alone is unchanging. With patience, all things are possible. Whoever has God lacks nothing. God alone is enough. Let it be and let it go. Seek that which is God and be in that moment, now. We have to be fed. More than that, we have to trust that there is food for all of us which we do not yet know, that unknowing. Yet God knows. Fear of change causes us to starve ourselves by holding on to that which we think we know, regardless of whether the knowing is true or not. We clutch tight to the past, allowing those bad times to be our gauge of what might happen in the future, as if that which we know will protect us from that which is yet to be. We suffer from a fear of knowing what could be, rather than living into the understanding that only God knows what will be. We lose the moment of now because while we hold on to the past, we're worrying about the future. The people who witnessed the change in the man born blind, the one who was born into darkness, were basically freaked out. They saw what happened. They knew the man before and after. They saw the truth, yet they refused to accept it because they could not understand how this could possibly be, how suddenly a little spit and dirt could turn into a mud that would make this man able to see. This man, born into blindness, did not know of Jesus before this instance, yet as soon as he was given a reason to believe, he accepted it. He was open to the now. Even he was astonished that the people could not accept what had just happened. So he exclaims, "Here is this astonishing thing. Never since the world began has it been heard that anyone opened the eyes of anyone born blind. If this man were not from God, he would do nothing. The man born into darkness could see the light where others refused to see what was right in front of them. It was easier for them to believe they were being tricked or lied to, or that Jesus was being blasphemous, than it was to believe this new thing that they had just witnessed. We spend so much time looking back, the good old 50s or the 90s, depending on how old you are now. Back in the day, the music was better then, life was easier then. It scares us to see the world as it is now. Yet it scares us to see the ugliness of the past. There are many factors that heighten our awareness of the world's condition, past and present. Everything is immediate now. When bad things happen, we learn of these instantaneously. Fear, anger, frustration, the desire to isolate, the yearning to lash out, to be concerned for our own safety. Each one is a real symptom of that overload. Yet Jesus calls us into the unknowing. He calls us into community, into that fearless God love, into a way that is counter to the culture of both John's gospel, our city now, our world. I wish I had the words to share with you more clearly the way I felt in that dream. I wish I could pass on to you the certainty I feel of being in the immediate now of the moment, how important and vital that is to our very being. There was not a concern for hunger because I knew no hunger until I was being fed. There was no thirst until I was given the water from the branch of the tree. God knew my needs before I did, and I was living in that dream in a full state of trust. Now, if we as parents knew and satisfied the needs of our children before they could let us know what those needs are, we'd all be accused of spoiling the heck out of them, wouldn't we? Yet to spoil is to rot. Love is not rotting. So then, what is love? Love is life-altering. Love is life-giving. Love changes the lover and the loved. When we focus on love, no excuses or justifications, we focus on love and loving, anger has a way of dissipating. When we set our hearts and minds on love, frustration and irritation and fear are eased. Who knows? Maybe love is the cure for stress. Teresa of Avila writes that this divine love is a letting go and allowing ourselves to be ambushed by the lover of the cosmos. I love that. Just think, being ambushed by the lover of the cosmos. When we intentionally focus on love, we direct our hearts and our actions towards everything and everyone rather than self. If love is our goal, we are altered forever because it leads to a divine union between God and the individual, and that leads to a oneness. Richard Rohr cautions his readers, if you are not ready to change, do not seek out God. Once we have one sincere moment of divine union, we will want to spend all our time on the one thing necessary, which is to grow deeper and deeper in love every chance we get. The world, our society, maybe even some of our friends, do not want us to change. They fear what they do not understand. The light that Paul talks about, the way of love, has no place in an economy that has no desire to care for its children or its elders, that imprisons those who are fleeing from hostile countries, and which is run by those whose political campaigns are fueled by a warfare mindset that allows the sale and use of weapons, whether these be in a church, a school, or the battlefield. It doesn't matter. Even the environment is victim to our corporate ways. To make sure that toxins are not being dumped into the air or our waterways, or our beloved Mississippi, or oceans, that lowers profits. The way of love has no place in a profit-fueled capitalism run amok culture. The way of love leads us to peace and harmony and more love. It leads us to a new way of living. This is not good for those who make their livings off the backs of those who are powerless, poor, and undereducated. Our society is built on fear and distrust, on greed, and on the idea that healthy food and shelter are a privilege, not a human right. This is not the way of Jesus. This is not the way of fearless God love. My dream showed me a clear understanding of what it is to be at peace. That, my friends, is not something I have ever experienced. It is something to which I want to return. I want to live in that space. I know that peace does not exist in the past or in the future. I know that the peace is right now, in this moment, now. My goal is to remember that, to intentionally hold that dream and that feeling and that understanding close to my very being. To be like the man who was born into darkness, yet now sees the light. To be like that one through whom the work of God is now being revealed. Whoever has God